Just leaving the stage, and we'll go now to Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, who joins us. Governor, nice to see you, and what a big night here in Wisconsin. And right now the margin is quite large. In fact, it's a resounding about 15 or 16 points. This is no close race like it was about 5-point margin in 2010 when Governor Walker and Mayor Barrett squared off. So your thoughts on this, at least right now, a whopping margin.
Greta, what a great night, not only for Wisconsin, but for America. You know, a lot of the experts, a lot of the pollsters thought this was going to be a late night in Wisconsin. I think it's going to be a late night in Chicago. I think there are going to be a lot of people in the Obama campaign very worried about these results. What it shows is when you've got a leader willing to make the tough decisions, Scott Walker not only cut spending, he's grown private sector jobs. He's done exactly what he promised the voters he would do. They rewarded him again tonight, just like they did a year and a half ago. President Obama's done the exact opposite in Washington. We need leaders that are willing to think about the next generation, not just the next election. I think it's a great night for Wisconsin. It's a great night for America.
You know, Governor, though, this margin, if it holds 15 points or so, that is actually, is hugely significant, because that means in the state that because there's a huge get out to vote drive among Democrats and Republicans, that means probably that a lot of Democrats were peeled off and voted for Governor Walker. I mean, look at these numbers, 57 to 42. I don't know how it's going to end up, but that is a huge message here in the state beyond just the victory.
Greta, that's exactly right. Just 4 years ago, President Obama won this state by 14 points. Tonight, you've got Scott Walker cruising to an easy victory. But look at what happened in this campaign. The hard left went after Scott. Now, remember why they started this recall in the first place. It's because he had the audacity to say to state workers, state government unions, that they should pay at least something towards their own pensions, their own health care, something that's very common in the private sector, by the way, very common for those taxpayers that are paying these bills. He had the audacity to make them do that so he could close a $3 billion deficit without raising taxes. He cut property taxes. They've added private sector jobs. The unemployment rate is as low as it's been since 2008. And look what happened in this campaign. For the last month, you've not even seen one ad about collective bargaining. You've not seen one ad about the issue that was supposed to have caused this recall in the first place. So even the hard left, I think, realized they didn't have a winning issue. The issue that started this whole recall, that you haven't even heard them talk about it. They've tried to distract voters by throwing everything against the wall to see what would stick. The president himself wouldn't even come to Wisconsin. I guess if you're a Democrat out there that has stood up for the president, you might get a tweet, if you're lucky. Not exactly great leadership. Obviously, you've got a president who can read the polls, did not want to come and be a part of this loss. Maybe he realized that he would have been a drag to Barrett. Maybe he didn't agree with these radical policies. For whatever reason, he decided not to come from Minnesota, not to come from Chicago. It would have been so easy for him to come to Wisconsin and try to help Barrett, and he didn't do that. I think it speaks volumes. I think you're exactly right. This was a state that was not considered 4 years ago was a safely Democratic state. Now even President Obama is considering it a toss-up state with tonight's victory. I think this is a state, not only can we win in Wisconsin, but I think Republicans, I think Governor Romney can also be very competitive, can win in Michigan, Pennsylvania on his way to taking back the country. The reality is, this shows conservative reforms work. They've worked in Wisconsin. They've worked in Louisiana. We need to see them work in Washington, D.C. This sends a strong message to President Obama. Now, I predict, Greta, that the White House will try to minimize this election. They'll try to say this was insignificant. It's not a sign of things to come. If it had gone their way, they would have been the first ones to say this is a sign for November. The reality is this is a very telling sign. This is a very telling sign about what's going to come in November as we begin to take our country back.
Now, you say that the Obama campaign is going to say that this victory is insignificant. When I heard you say, the first thing I thought is that I imagine the Democrats here are going to think, insignificant? We gave you a 14-point win in 2008. We're so insignificant, you won't even come and help us when you obviously have a lot of friends here at a 14-point margin. Talk about insignificant. He just sent a message to the people of Wisconsin. This may be an insignificant race, but he's told them they're not important either because he didn't even come here.
Absolutely. And look, the National Union has made this their premier race. They've spent tens of millions of dollars, sent thousands of activists into the state, sent celebrity activists and liberal extremists into the state. What this shows is the hard left agenda is not what American voters want. Look, the president promised he was going to cut the deficit in half by the end of his first term. He promised he was going to reform the entitlement programs. Promised he was going to get the private sector economy. Done none of those things. Scott Walker actually had the courage to do what he promised the voters he said he was going to do when he was elected. He got into office. He's cutting property taxes the first time after they'd gone up over $1 billion. Again, he's added over 30,000 private sector jobs. Thanks to his reforms, local school boards and schools are benefiting from those reforms. What this shows is that conservative reforms work. The American people, the Wisconsin voters are saying, and I think the American people are saying, we want leaders who are willing to make tough decisions. Wisconsin was at a critical point because of the mess that Governor Doyle left behind for Scott Walker to fix. Our country's at a critical point. We need that same kind of principled conservative leadership in Washington, D.C. to get back on the right track so we don't go the way of these European socialist models like you see in Greece and these other countries. We can't afford another 4 years of President Obama. What Scott Walker has shown tonight is that good policy is great politics. You know, all the experts would say, don't take these bold stands, don't take these courageous stands, don't take on the unions, don't make these tough decisions. He did the exact opposite, and he's being rewarded with a great victory tonight. I think there are a lot of politicians in Washington, D.C. that could take note from Wisconsin. I know you're from Wisconsin, and let me give a great shout-out to the great state of Wisconsin. You've sent Paul Ryan to the Congress, a great fiscal leader. Ron Johnson to the Senate, great leader. Ryan's, I know who you had on your show earlier. You're the chairman of the party, a great leader. Scott Walker, a great governor. So Wisconsin's doing a lot of great things for the country right now.
Governor, thank you, and we're going to hear from Governor Walker very shortly, but we'll take a quick break. Thank you, Governor. And straight ahead.